I ain't never shot no big rag buck. No one ever stops to peek in the bed of my truck. I come home empty-handed 'cause I got no luck. Yeah, I'm pretty bad at hunting deer. I watch their show on my TV. Spook's my hero and I got a crush on Tiffany. The bone collector Michael Waddell makes it look easy, but I'm pretty bad at hunting deer. I wear my rubber boots, got a scent-lock suit, rattle, bag, and grunt call. Pour out my Tank 69, I use it all the time, but I still got no buck on my wall. I got kicked off my own grandpa's farm. He said I couldn't hit the broadside of his barn. To tell you all the truth, I just don't give a darn, 'cause I'm pretty bad at hunting deer. I'm pretty bad at hunting deer.
Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast, episode number 68. Kevin Blake Weldon from Pretty Bad at Hunting Deer and funnyhuntingsongs.com. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
I'm Lee Lukoski.
And I'm Tiffany Lukoski, and you're listening to our favorite hunting podcast on iTunes.
The Big Buck Registry, Big Buck Podcast.
Hi, this is Jared Scheffler from Whitetail Adrenaline. You're listening to my favorite hunting podcast ever, Jay and Dusty on the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
This is Lane Benoit, Master Tracker. You're listening to my favorite podcast on iTunes, the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Jay Sky, your host of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast. And joining me from long distance away from Ohio, Dusty Phillips. Dusty, what's going on, man?
Oh, man. Season is here. I'm back to my normal self. That's what's going on. I'm normal. I am visiting the woods often. I'm enjoying myself, and man, hunting season is here. How about you, Jay? What's up in New Hampshire?
Well, we're in the season. It's bow season, and we're really enjoying it. And it's, you know, the colors are here. It's beautiful outside. The weather is crisp, and it's just inviting you as the hunter to come and play every single day.
Yeah, right on. I want to say hey to all the listeners. You know, thanks for tuning in to another great episode of the Big Buck Registry Big Buck Podcast.
Yes, sir. Are you prepared to laugh some today is the question.
Yeah, I definitely am. You know, that absolutely. I'm always down for a good laugh, and we like to cut up a little bit. Sometimes we get a little more serious than others, but you know, that's just part of it. You know, you get to talk of hunting. You try to throw some things in there that cut up a little bit, and you try to be serious when it needs to be serious. So, yeah, I'm definitely down for some good laughs.
Me too. And I think we might have some of the best deer camp hunting songs that we've ever come across.
Absolutely. You know, it's one of the things where when I heard this, it's probably been, I don't know, a couple months ago, somebody had posted a link to check out this song, you know, and I'm like, man, I like this guy. You know, you could just connect to his music right off the bat.
Yep. He's pretty bad at hunting deer.
He is pretty bad at hunting deer.
But actually, he's a really good deer hunter, too.
Absolutely.
That's the best part about this thing. He makes you laugh, but he also tells a really good deer story because he's good at it. And that's pretty much what he does a lot of the time when he's not scouting for major league talent in the baseball or singing some funny songs for people. He is hunting constantly.
Yeah, absolutely. And didn't you say we're going to catch him maybe at a hotel room on a deer hunting trip?
I believe he is.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep. So we're going to bring you on Kevin Blake Weldon from funnyhuntingsongs.com right now.
He's pretty bad at hunting deer.
Pretty bad at hunting deer.
Call him up.
Here's Kevin. Kevin Blake Weldon, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast. How are you, sir?
Jay, Dusty, I'm doing great, man. I'm in the great state of Kansas up here. bow hunting during the early bow season and having a blast. And I got my guitar out, and I'm just ready to have a good time with you guys tonight.
That's awesome, man. We're psyched to have you on. We were introduced to your music the other day, and it was perfect for what we like to do here on the Big Buck Podcast. And Dusty is, he's like a part-time comedian too, so he's going to enjoy interacting with you tonight. I'm positive.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I love it.
Absolutely.
Very cool. So, Kevin, tell us about yourself. Where are you from? Where do you call home?
Well, I was born and raised in Lufkin, Texas. It's a small town in East Texas, about 2 hours north in the north direction of Houston. It's not really north, but kind of northeast. Sure. About 50 miles from the Louisiana border. I grew up playing baseball and always wanted to play professional ball, but I tore my rotator cuff in junior college and had to give that up. And so my next option was to be a country music singer. So I gave my scholarship back, and I told the coach, next time you see me, I'm going to be on CMT. And 5 years later, I signed a major record deal with Curb Records and was in Nashville. And I've been doing music pretty much my whole life.
That's fantastic. All right, so you're a baseball player, country and western singer, now turned country comedian, singer, and
yep.
But you're also a deer hunter. I mean, you're not just making this stuff up. It's not like you're drawing just from other people's mistakes or the people that caricatures, so to speak, in your music. But you're actually a big deer hunter too.
Oh, guys, man, I absolutely love whitetail hunting. I got introduced to it when I was 18 years old, I guess. I was 19 before I got my first buck. But my dad would go hunting every year, and he'd always come home with a buck or a doe or a hog, or sometimes he'd get one of each. He'd get invited to a hunting camp every year, and but I played baseball. I was into sports and didn't really get into hunting until after I graduated high school. I had a cousin that was a big deer hunter, and he asked me if I wanted to go, and I said sure. So he took me the fall of 1985, I guess it was. I just graduated high school in May, and that November, Darren took me out to my uncle's farm, and I shot a little 4-point buck, and I'm like, man, I just got hooked on it. And then from there, I wanted to shoot a big deer, and so I started passing up some small ones, and I killed my first decent sized buck. He was an 8-point on Christmas Day that year, and that just that started my absolute obsession and passion for whitetail hunting, and I've been at it every year, since I was 19 years old, and I absolutely just eat up with it.
It is a bit of a addiction in a sense. There's something very special about whitetail hunting specifically, and Dusty has that passion. I have that passion too, and it's something that the three of us connect on, and so does our entire audience at the Big Buck Registry. Where do you think that comes from?
I really don't know. I've had a lot of conversation, about this, and I don't know. I just think it's ingrained, and I think it's part of our DNA as men. We've got to go out and we've got to, hunt and bring home the meat, to feed the family or whatever. I think it's just ingrained in us from way, 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 way back. But there's something about the antlers of a whitetail deer that hold almost a magical pull for all of us. I'm sure everybody that's listening to this podcast, I'm sure, can relate to it. But it's not so much just the actual hunt and harvest of an animal, but it's the whole being out and being a part of nature. It's where I go to recharge my batteries, and I'm sure 99% of the folks that are listening to this tonight can agree that it's an awesome experience to be able to sit out in nature and watch the woods come alive. And when you hear that grunt, or you hear a buck sparring off in the distance, or maybe you get lucky and you hear a buck fight or snort-wheeze or something, your hair stands up on the back of your neck, and you're like, this could be the day I shoot the biggest buck of my life. And it's what keeps us going. And some of us have had the great fortune of harvesting some nice deer, and others of us, we keep going out looking for that elusive trophy, and it just it drives us. We can't wait. You're counting down the days. You're taking vacation. You're getting your kids out of school. I mean, it's just it's really just hard to define what it is that attracts us to it. But whatever it is, I'm glad I have it.
Yeah. Dusty, how do you feel about that?
I've quit a job one time to go hunt and come on.
I hear you, brother. I've quit more than a job, boy. I broke up with a girl one time because she wouldn't let me go.
Yeah. I don't date women that don't hunt, so sorry.
God bless you.
That's fantastic. Be careful, because I got a song about that, Dusty. If you, if you don't watch out, your wife or your significant other might wind up shooting a bigger deer, and it might cause some real problems at home. So I got a song about that called Big Buck.
Right on.
Yes, sir. I've listened to that song. It's fantastic. So all right. So you grew up in just outside of Houston. And
that's correct.
And then you went to, how did you end up in Nashville? Let's talk about your former career.
Well, like I said, I was playing baseball, and I tore my rotator cuff my second year in junior college. And, a couple years before that, I had always wanted to go into this little recording studio at Astroworld there in Houston and pay the $10 and go in and sing a song. And I one day I got up enough nerve to do it, and everybody's like, dude, you got a good voice. You ought to think about being a singer. And I'm like, you know what? I think I might, And then, of course, after I hurt my arm, I had another one of my buddies had given me a guitar. And so I just started learning how to play it. And I put a band together. And next thing you know, we entered this big battle of the bands in Houston. And at the end of the summer, out of 52 bands, I wound up winning the battle of the bands. And I was sponsored by Coors Light and the big radio station there in Houston. And, some record producers in Nashville started hearing about me. And one thing led to another. And one of the record producers that was producing Leanne Rimes and John Berry flew me to Nashville, and they said, we think you're going to be a star, and we want to sign you. And I signed to Curb Records in 1995, and they paired me with another guy from Texas because they wanted a new duo to compete with Brooks and Dunn back during this time.
Gotcha.
And I didn't want to do the duo, but I was afraid that if I told them no, it might cost me my only shot.
Sure.
So I agreed to do it, and whether it was the right thing or not, I don't know. It just wasn't in the cards for that duo to make it. We were called Blake and Brian. We had a couple of top 40s in '97 and '98. We had a number one in Europe for 4 weeks. But it was just at a very difficult time in country music to break a new act. And when you're trying to go up against Brooks and Dunn, it just there was a lot of hype. The record label spent a lot of money, but we just didn't get the either we didn't have the right songs, or they gave up on us too soon. I don't know what happened, but it just wasn't meant to be. And after the duo broke up and we lost our deal, I moved back to Texas, and I started recording as a solo back home, and had a couple of top 40s on the Texas music chart, and figured I need to be back in Nashville. Yep. So I moved back to Nashville in 2002. And I got hired to do an event for the National Wild Turkey Federation in Marion, Illinois. And they didn't have enough in their budget to pay me my full fee to be there. So they said, what if we just give you half cash and half we give you a free deer hunt? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'm all about that. So I went up to Illinois and came in one night after the deer hunt, and the guys wanted me to get my guitar out, and, we got to drinking some Bud Lights and having a good time. Well, I'm playing and singing, and right in the middle of singing a Tim McGraw song, I started changing the words up just to make people laugh.
Yep.
And I wrote this song called That's What You Get for Shooting My Buck. I just wrote it off the cuff as a joke. And everybody in camp was just rolling, laughing. They're like, dude, you've got to record that, man. Every year we have to listen to the 30-point buck. Did you see the 30-pointer? I've seen the 30-pointer. We want something new. So I said, you know what? That's a great idea. And I started doing parodies of, like, Friends in Low Places. I'm a member of a country club. I love this bar. The Devil Went Down to Georgia. The Thunder Rolls. I started writing all these parodies, and I wrote some original hunting songs like Big Buck and Gruntin' Horn Rattling Fool. That's What You Get for Shooting My Buck. Bucky the Bionic Buck. And I started recording these albums. I got an investor, and it just caught on, man. And the first CD came out. We started selling a bunch. I started doing all the deer expos down south and just selling these things like they're going out of style. And I eventually paid my investors off, and I've got 3 volumes out now, and I'm actually working on volume 4 as we speak, and I'm hoping to have it out in time for Christmas. But it's just been an absolute blast. I get to do what I love to do. I get to sing, write, and entertain folks, and I get to write and sing about my biggest passion, and that's whitetail deer hunting. So I throw a few turkey songs in there for good measure, and maybe a duck hunting song, but most of it's about hunting big bucks, and if they got a drop tine, even better.
Gotcha. Do you ever miss the Nashville scene back from what it was compared to what it is today?
From time to time, I do. Because I do have a serious side too, and I miss the opportunity to perform my original serious music, and I do it on occasion. And actually, I'm working on a new serious record as well. But I do miss that. I miss I miss being out on the road. I miss getting to do the big shows and be in the tour bus and things like that. But I just turned 48 years old, and that window is pretty much closed for me. I'm not saying that I may not get one more shot. There's still some interest there for a couple of the songs that I've got. But I just don't know that I have the drive and the passion to get back and be, 200 days on the road in a bus traveling around the country. I just don't think I have that drive to do that anymore. So,
sure.
Right now I get to hunt and I get to fish and I get to sing my hunting songs, and I'll throw in a few of my originals, when I'm out doing my deer hunting, just to show people I've got, that I can actually sing, and I've gotten to do some amazing events over the last few years, and it just keeps getting bigger. So I'm getting to enjoy the best of both worlds, with the exception that I'm not famous and I don't have people, everywhere you go wanting to take your picture and get your autograph. Most people don't even know I'm the guy that does the Bad Bob and Jimmy deer hunting song. They don't even know it's me.
Right. That makes sense.
That's fine.
Yep. And there's something kind of special, I think, about not being famous too, right? I mean, you've kind of been on both sides of that coin. Which is better?
I much prefer, how it is now. It's great that you can go to Walmart or the movie or out to eat and people don't recognize you and they don't mess with you. I mean, I like that. Every once in a while, Jay, Dust, you guys know, I mean, we all still have a little bit of an ego, and it's nice to be recognized. And,
sure.
Fortunately for me, over the last couple of years, my deer hunting songs have really started to garner a lot of attention. So I do get that every once in a while, but it's not, it's not an everyday thing. So again, it's kind of like the best of both worlds.
Yep. I was at an event not too long ago, and there were people that were coming up to me asking me if I was Jay from the Big Buck Registry. And I was standing in line waiting to talk to Brian Quaka, actually, the pig man. And it was a whole different experience for me. And I was looking around trying to see if somebody was setting me up.
Right.
But it was a whole different feeling. I've never really had that. So somebody actually recognized me for some of the work we've done on the podcast, and they thanked me for all the episodes we've put out and the content and how much it's helped them to deer hunt. So I mean, that's not going to Nashville by any means, but it was just a glimpse of what that feeling is like, and it was kind of odd, I have to admit.
Well, you know what though, Jay, that's really cool though, because it says a lot about what you and Dusty are doing. I mean, when you work hard and you put out a good program like what you're doing, and you start to get all these fans, it's nice to be recognized, because you guys, I'm sure, have put in a lot of time, a lot of hours, and you're talking about a topic that's dear to to a lot of people's hearts, man. So, man, my hat's off to you guys. I'm excited to and honored just that you guys would even have me on your podcast, man. It's going to be fun tonight.
Well, we're honored to have you as well. And Dusty, you've been recognized before too, at like Cabela's or something, checking out. You told me that story a while back.
Yeah, it's the stardom's just happening for us. Fortunately that we come along when social media and the internet's pretty strong. As far as Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, all that, it's real strong for us. And, the more we do, the more we get out there, and the more people recognize that, we're not just here for a few rounds of skeet. We're here for the whole tournament. We're going to be here for a good while.
Yep. I want to hear I want to talk some deer hunting. You guys feel like talking some deer hunting?
Absolutely.
Is that a question?
No,
really, is that a question?
I
Jay?
feel like we got a little serious there. Now I'm like, all right, we got to change the tone here. Let's talk deer hunting, because that's what we love to do the most on this show. Kevin, tell us about, and this is one of our favorite questions. Tell us, like, if you could pick one of your hunts that you would say is like your most memorable hunt. Could you do that? Could you remember one that kind of pops into your head?
Oh gosh, guys, man, I've had some phenomenal hunts over the last few years. I've got several that would fit that bill, but I've got one in mind right now that I'll share with you guys. It's when I started doing these songs, I wanted to get a video camera, because I wanted to eventually, do a TV show, and which I did have for about a year. It was called Posted Places. It was based on, the title of Volume 1, Posted Places. And we were on the Pursuit Channel and Sportsman, and we were on this other network that it was called In Country Television. It never did really take off, but we started filming hunts about 9 or 10 years ago, and I absolutely love videoing, and I get almost as much out of videoing somebody shoot a buck, and I'm running the camera as if I was actually there to pull the trigger or, release the arrow myself. A few years ago, I took my brother-in-law to Missouri, and Terry, works hard. He's been a great husband to my sister, and he doesn't get a chance to go, and he's always just like drooling every time he sees the videos and the pictures and hears the stories of some of the hunts that I've been on. And so I decided to take him to Missouri. This was about 5 years ago.
Yep.
We went up there for 6 days, and during that time, Terry missed 3 does, and we get down to the last afternoon, and I know people, here we go with the last day story, but it really was the last day.
It is kind of a classic, I have to say.
It really was, but it was the last day, and to put icing on the cake, it was Halloween. It was October the 31st, and we had put some stands up the first day we got there, and we never did go hunt this one particular stand. So we decided on the last afternoon we were headed back to the same spot that we'd been hunting because we knew there were deer there and we had bucks coming in, but they were always coming in at dark. And I finally said, Terry, we haven't hunted that stand right down that fence row right down there. I said, I know it kind of looks like it's out in the middle of nowhere, but I just have a feeling that's where we need to hunt. He goes, man, I want to go back to the other spot. I said, Terry, we've worn that spot out. Let's go down here. So I talked him into it. We get down there. 30 minutes into the hunt, a doe and 2, fawns come out. Well, he proceeds to miss the big doe for, I think that was number 3, or might have been number 4, misses. Well, these deer blow out of there, and, the button buck is standing right directly underneath the tree, and he's looking all around trying to figure out what happened. And about that time, I caught movement up about 200 yards out in front of us. And I said, hey, there's a deer there. So I got my binoculars on. I said, hey, that's a pretty good buck, Terry. And the buck was up there, and he had just followed a doe out of some CRP up into this plowed field, kind of going to this little island of timber. And he's 200 yards away. I didn't even have the video camera on him. I just wanted to see what would happen. So I snort-wheezed at that deer. And I mean to tell you, that deer immediately took off on a dead run and closed the distance 100 yards in about 4 seconds. Mm. And it was standing there looking down at us, just all swelled up, and he started pawing the ground, and the joker snort-wheezed back at us, and I've got it all on video. I mean, my brother-in-law is about to have a heart attack. He's never heard of a snort-wheeze, never seen that before. And here's this deer. He's a 260-pound, 5.5-year-old mature buck, wow. 8-point, and he's just looking down at us. There's several things we have in our favor. One, there's a big brush pile that's right out in front of our stand, so he can't see behind it. And 2, when I snort-wheezed, that little button buck took off running out from underneath my stand and busted out in that plowed field and started running up, to that timber. So everything in this buck's mind is there's another buck down there, and I don't like it. So he's looking at us, and he looks back at his doe. Well, he turns around and starts walking back to his doe, so I snort-wheezed at him again. Joker turned and came down to about 50 yards, snort-wheezed back at us, and I'm like, I'm just not believing this, but I've got the camera running the whole time. My brother-in-law is like 3 or 4 feet away from me in another tree, but close enough that we can talk. And I'm looking at him, and his eyes are big as saucers, dude. He's like not believing this. Well, this cat and mouse goes on for about 2 or 3 minutes. The buck's pawing the ground. He looks back at his doe, looks at us, and finally, after 2 or 3 times of him coming down and turning around, coming back, turning around, he finally turns and walks off, and I'm like, he's gone. And I snort-wheezed again. He didn't do anything. He just kept walking. The only thing I could think of to do was to grab I have my rattling antlers with me. I grabbed one of the antlers, and I started just raking the tree as hard as I could. As soon as I drug those tines down that bark the first time, that deer did a freaking 180, come straight down to us, and Terry shot him at 13 yards. The deer ran off at 25 and fell over dead.
That's awesome.
All on video. Absolutely one of the most unbelievable deer hunts I've ever been a part of, and I got it all on film. And we like I said, we watched the deer snort-wheeze. He came in, we fooled him, shot him, made a perfect heart shot on him. The deer went, 10 10 or 12 yards and stood there and wobbled and fell over dead. And then he was dead in, 25 seconds from the moment Terry hit him. But I swear, from that day forward, my brother-in-law thinks I am the freaking kingpin deer hunter in the whole world, dude. So, I'm not. But
that's a great feeling, though. That's a great feeling.
But it was absolutely unbelievable, guys. I mean, and to have it on video, we watched that hunt. I don't know. We aired it on one of our episodes, and of course, I've got the raw footage, and we've watched it just, I don't know, probably 25 or 30 times over the last 4 or 5 years. And every time we watch it, I can remember like it was yesterday. The absolute sheer unbelief of this deer falling for it and snort wheezing back, and I did it with my mouth. I just I saw it a couple times on TV, and I heard it, so I just started doing it with my mouth, and it was awesome to be able to fool a buck. And since then, I've fooled several deer. I've actually called in several mature bucks with a snort wheeze. I don't even use a grunt call anymore because a lot of times you'll call in a smaller deer, but I've used that snort wheeze, and I've fooled a lot of mature bucks over the last 5 years with a snort wheeze.
Interesting. So the snort wheeze, let's break that down a little bit more. The snort wheeze, I've heard about it a million times. It's like one of those calls that you hear people use and have success. I've never tried it, really. I think I've got a little device that's supposed to do it. Can you walk us through, and this is kind of one of our key points, just try to place a tip inside each one of these podcasts so people can use it in their belt of tricks when they go out in the field. Can you walk us through how you do a snort wheeze with your mouth?
Sure. One thing that I'm going to throw my disclaimer out here. I don't want to for spooking somebody's big deer. Okay. Now, there's a time and place for everything. You guys know that. There's a time and place for rattling. There's a time and place for scents. There's a time and place for grunting, and there's a time and place for snort wheeze.
Right.
In my experience, snort wheeze will spook everything except the dominant buck. That's just my experience. I'm not saying that that's fact. I'm not going to publish it in a book, but from my personal experience, I've snort wheezed at lesser bucks, and I've had them turn tail and run. I have had mature bucks, and I'm talking 5.5, 6.5-year-old bucks. I've had them respond favorably. So, if I see a mature buck and I don't think he's going to come my way naturally, I may throw a snort wheeze out there at him just to see what he'll do. And a lot of times it's been the difference in me killing the deer and me watching him and never seeing him again.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
Like I said, there may be some people that hear this and say, that's not how you do it, but I've done it. It works for me. And it's almost like, you'll hear it on TV. They sell devices that you can pay $14.95 or whatever, but guys, you don't have to spend any money. You can do it with your mouth, and it sounds it sounds better than some of these little contraptions, little horn things that they're marketing and trying to get you to buy. But what I do is I put my top teeth on my bottom lip, and it's almost like the sound of letting an air out of a balloon. It goes.
Gotcha.
Okay. When that buck snort wheezed at us in Missouri, he didn't do the. Now, a lot of times the bucks will do that, but my buck just did one slow, solid, and it just sounded like letting air out of a balloon.
And you're blowing. So you have your teeth on your upper lip. Is that correct?
I actually have my teeth on my bottom lip.
Your teeth on your bottom lip, and you're just blowing out?
And I'm blowing out of the side of my mouth, not the front, out of the side.
Yep.
With my teeth on my bottom lip. And just like, it's almost like you're spitting, it probably looks pretty funny, but, you want to get that sound like you're letting air out of a balloon,
Wish we had this on video.
I know. That would be awesome. We're getting good sound effects, though. All right.
It's been, like I said, it's something that is absolutely, it's awesome when it works. I've actually heard deer in the wild snort wheeze. I think I've heard it 4 times or 5 times. I've lost track now. I filmed it 2 or 3 different times, but every time it all still has that wheezy kind of letting the air out of the balloon. You don't want to sound like. You don't want to sound like that. You want to get that. You want to get that like you're throwing. You're spraying. Really, you don't want to do it to somebody's face, but
right. So you kind of spitting a little bit, and
a little bit, and hold it out. You don't want to go. You don't want to do that, because when they do that, they're holding it. It's like they get a deep breath of air and just blow it out, man.
Okay.
It's an intimidation, is what it is. And when these bucks get around each other, if they're the same age class, and a lot of times the more dominant buck, it's like it's like not really a challenge, but it's like a get out of here. You don't want to mess with me. I'm not in a good mood today. It's an intimidation. They'll walk in, they'll lay their ears back, they'll puff their hair up, and I don't know if you've ever seen a deer when he comes in, he starts to get belligerent. His hair stands up on the back of his neck, and it makes him look bigger than he really is.
Yeah.
I mean, when they do that, they go from a sleek looking deer to a freaking tank.
Right. Right.
And they'll lay their ears back, and they're kind of sidestepping in and looking at him out of the corner of their eye. And if that's not enough to get the buck, to say, okay, I'm going to get on out of here, then they may snort-wheeze at him, and that's like, I mean business. And sometimes they'll paw the ground, sometimes they'll start thrashing a bush or whatever, but those are all intimidation techniques that these deer use to say, look, I'm not happy, and you need to get out of here.
Gotcha. All right, so the snort-wheeze, using your mouth and your lips a little bit and kind of blowing out the side, kind of like
put your teeth on your bottom lip, and I blow out the right side of my mouth, and it just probably like if your two front teeth are the 12 o'clock, it's probably like the 10 o'clock position. On my bottom lip is where I'm letting the air out.
Gotcha.
And just open your mouth up just enough to where that air starts coming out, and it kind of makes that spewy kind of wheezy, letting the air out of the balloon kind of sound. And like I said, I'm not Dr. Deer. But I'm a guy that's been out in the woods for a long time, and I've seen it, and I've heard it, and I've had success with it. So I'm very confident, that it in the right situations, it can mean the difference in you taking a buck and not, or at least getting an opportunity at it.
Gotcha. Dusty, did you have something you had to throw in there?
I learned the snort-wheeze after like 4 conies in the bathroom the next morning.
I hear you, brother.
So it really is like a balloon. You got a balloon full of air, you hold it, and then you just kind of let a little bit out on the sides and
right.
pull it thin, so that
right.
and you got all that saliva and stuff kind of spitting out through there. That's what
another good thing too. I haven't looked on YouTube, but for any of the podcast listeners out there, there are videos. Some of the guys that have done the videos they may go into in depth, on how it sounds, but you don't have to spend money buying those calls, guys. I'm telling you, it sounds more natural when you do it with your mouth than it does blowing it through one of those little horn things that they sell. So I would encourage you to save your 10 or 12 or 15 bucks and use that to buy one of my CDs with instead of
buy a CD. You go on YouTube and learn how to do that with your mouth. Excellent. Well, that was an amazing story, and I really like that tip because we haven't had that tip yet on the Big Buck podcast, have we, Dusty? So this is kind of cool. It's another
real cool. It's always unique to hear it from somebody that the technique actually works for. Yep.
Kevin, I was wondering if you could have Dusty. I'm going to have Dusty kind of walk through your gear setup. We'd like to kind of learn a little bit more about the hunter and what they're using in the field to be successful.
Sure.
The snort-wheeze was definitely one of them, but a lot about deer hunting. It's pretty obvious. So I'd like to have Dusty kind of pick your brain a little bit more about how you set up, how you go about your daily hunt.
Let's talk a little bit about like what kind of terrain do you normally hunt in? Give us kind of a rundown of, like, say you're in Kansas right now. Where are you guys hunting at in Kansas? You in the timber? You in some CRP? You out in the cornfield? What are you in out there in Kansas?
Right. Out here in Kansas, what we're focusing on right now are the draws. We're in an area that's a lot of real hilly grasslands, cattle grazing, pastures. I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of acres, but you can be out there and you can look for miles and all you see is grass, but you see looks like little shrubs. And if you crest over that hill and start walking down towards you, realize those little shrubs are actually 40, 50 foot tall trees down in these draws. And so, these deer, now during the rut, they come out and they run around like crazy, but, for the most part, they stay in these draws and these fingers, these wooded ravines, so to speak. So we've kind of got several setups down in these draws. Once you get down into the draw, it's actually most of them have pretty nice creek beds that run through there, and it kind of flattens out down there. So it's natural funnels. And during the rut, especially, these deer are moving through these draws, all the time. So if you get in a good that squeezes, pretty close, you can you're pretty much guaranteed to get a shot at something if you stay there long enough, because they're going to move through there.
Right on. You guys tree stand or ground blinding?
No, I hunt out of tree stands. I'm not a big ground blind fan. There have been instances, where I've had to in the past. A couple of hunts in Texas, there weren't really any trees, and I didn't really like sitting up in a tripod. But I've hunted ground blinds in Texas in some of the places there. But no, I love tree stands. I've been a tree stand hunter pretty much since I started, and I've killed most of my big bucks, from a tree stand. I actually, talking about hunting, I actually moved to Iowa 6 years ago. My daughters both joined the Marine Corps. I was living in Nashville, divorced, and I travel all the time anyway. So, my buddies were up in Iowa. They're killing big deer, and like, dude, you just need to move up here. So when Sarah and Ashley joined the Marine Corps, I packed up, I moved to Iowa, and I got my residency there. And I've been hunting in Iowa for the last 5 or 6 years, and it's absolutely the most phenomenal state that I've ever hunted, for whitetail deer. And it's farmland. We hunt mainly pinch points and funnels, and we play the wind. We have setups where the wind is blowing out over an open field, and we get on the edge and of a pinch point or a funnel, and a big mature buck's nose is his number one line of defense. Everybody knows that. And you can go to every possible extreme that you can think of, all the way down to getting the ozone, that new ozonics thing. And I've used it. I don't own one, but I'm going to get one because they're very effective. But if you play the wind, you can smell like gasoline. And if a buck comes in, down or upwind of you, he's not going to smell you. So if you can get in a situation where you can hunt a pinch point or a funnel, and that's where the terrain kind of forces the cover where the deer are going to naturally move into a real narrow, say 40 or 50 yard wide strip, get on the downwind side of it. When the bucks move through there, they're not going to smell you. So, that is the key to success in the Midwest. When you get into more open woods areas, when deer can come from any direction, you're pretty much at the mercy of how good you can control your scent and which direction the deer are coming from.
Right on. What kind of stand? Is there a particular brand of stand that you like to hunt out of?
Well, back when I had my TV show, we had sponsors. But I'll just tell you, I'm going to tell you from a guy that's hunted a lot of them. There's two different stands that I like. I like Millennium tree stands for the sheer comfort. I mean, they got that trampoline material in the seats, and you can actually sit in those jokers all day long. And we were sponsored by Millennium. I'm not sponsored by them anymore, but I absolutely love that stand. They're not as portable friendly, I guess how you'd say it. They're not real easy to move quickly unless you already have the receiver set up in a bunch of trees. They're a little bit heavy, and I don't really like the chains. But as far as portability and getting in and setting up real quick, you can't beat XOP or Lone Wolf. XOP is a new stand it's pretty much a Lone Wolf stand. I'm not getting paid by anybody, so nobody can get mad at me for what I'm saying. But right. Look up XOP. They're a great stand. They make a climbing stick, and the stands they're very, very, very high quality stands. They're not as comfortable as a Millennium, but man, you can sit those things up. They don't weigh much, and they're very well constructed, and they don't squeak. So there's a lot of stands out there that squeak, the cheaper stands. And another stand that I really like that I just used this year for the first time is the Twisted Timber tree stand. It's got a couple of features that I'm not real crazy about, but it will pretty much fit on any tree or limb, and you can adjust it to fit any crook, any limb. And that, I do like that, because sometimes you get in an area where you've got a perfect tree, but it's not conducive to one of the more traditional type stands.
Right. Gotcha. What kind of camouflage are you wearing when you hunt?
This is another one of those things where you've got your diehard real tree, your diehard mossy oak. I know Toxie real well. I love the mossy oak guys. None of those companies have ever really given me camouflage, so I don't have to say this is the better one or that's the better one. Scent Lock is is everybody knows scent lock. You know, it's synonymous with deer hunting, and a lot of my songs, it just fits so well that I sing scent lock in this and scent lock in that. Well, a few years ago, I reached out to their marketing guy, and they wouldn't even give me the time of day. Well, fortunately for me, this past year, I met Greg Sesselman, the owner of Scent Lock, at the SHOT Show, and I had a mutual friend that made us the introduction, and I said, "You've never heard my songs, Greg?" He said, "No, I haven't." I played him a couple of my deer hunting songs, and he said, "I can't believe I haven't heard these." He said, "If there's anything that you need from Scent Lock, you know, we will, you know," and of course I've been wearing, you know, some Scent Lock stuff. And so I wear Scent Lock now. The pattern that I have from them is that vertigo pattern, which works real well, especially in November when a lot of the leaves are gone and we do get some snow in the Midwest. But man, honestly, guys, there's a lot of great patterns out there. And honestly, you know, if a guy was to just be still, you know, you can pretty much get by with killing a deer in blue jeans and a t-shirt. You know, the camouflage companies don't want to hear you say that, but you know, if you want to look the part, man, go buy you the Scent Lock suit with the latest and greatest patterns. But you know, if you're a guy that doesn't have, you know, $800 to spend on a Scent Lock suit, right, you know, man, just, you know, you can buy you some tree bark. Go Jim Crumley's tree bark 30 years ago. And get up next to a tree and just break your outline up and be still, and you can kill a deer.
Right. I agree. You know, in a sense, I agree. I don't agree with the blue jeans. That's a fail from the start.
Dude, I've killed a deer in blue jeans before.
Really? Yeah, man.
Off the ground.
Really?
I didn't set out to do it, but
right.
You know, if you've got some grass or some saplings or limbs that break up your silhouette, you know, unless you're just wearing a white t-shirt and there's no snow on the ground, you know, the deer see movement more than they see, you know, color.
Right.
So,
right.
You know, as long as you're still, I mean, I've had deer come by me at 4 or 5 steps and not see me, you know. So, and I've worn all different kind of patterns, and you know, and again, I know that the camouflage companies, especially the big ones, you know, they're making literally millions and millions and millions of dollars, so they can pay, you know, the Jay Gregory's or the Lee and Tiffany's or the Michael Waddell's. They can pay them big money to say this is the latest and greatest thing. But in all honesty, guys, you know, wear what you like. You know, don't feel like you got to go out and spend $500 or $600 or $800 on a suit. You know, wear what you like. It doesn't matter if it's 3 years old. You know, I mean, or 10. You know, I've got some camouflage that's, you know, well, I do have this brand new Scent Lock suit. I'm fired up about it. It's nice, man, but gosh, to think I'd have to go out and spend, you know, $600 or $700 is, you know, I could find, you know, other things to spend that kind of money on. But, you know, again, everybody's going to have their opinion, and I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but I'm just speaking from experience and what's worked for me in the past. I've killed deer in mossy oak. I've killed deer in mothwing. Steve Johnson is a good friend of mine. He started mothwing, then he started that cloak DNA, and now I don't know what he's got, but there's lots of great patterns. The lost pattern, gosh, there was a guy that came out with some camouflage a few years ago called Hiding Camo, and it was deer hide and had deer pictures blended in with it. And it's like, you know, he sent me some of it. I mean, I didn't want to say, you know, I'm going to wear it, but I actually did wear the pants one time because my other ones were dirty and they smelled like gas or something. But, you know, like I said, you know, whatever you're comfortable with, you don't have to buy into all the marketing that's out there. Just, you know, try to remain as scent free as you can. Try to hunt, you know, upwind, or make sure the deer are upwind. Don't. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I get that mixed up sometimes. But, you know, just, you know, the main thing is just be patient, be still, and just, you know, what gets most people, you know, is you get fidgety. You know, you're standing up and looking at the wrong time when the deer walks in. You know, I mean, you've got to be still, and you've got to pay attention, and you've got to be watching for the deer, because a lot of times, you know, they sneak up out of nowhere, and if you're talking on your cell phone or texting your buddy or looking at some videos or peeing, you know, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that can be going on in a deer stand, and you have to, you know, how serious are you? You know, do you want to kill a deer? You know, are you out there? Does it? Do you just want the experience? But if you're serious about it, man, get as many things you can in your favor, and just pray that you know, that it goes your way that day.
Right, absolutely. I agree to that. It's 95% luck, the other skill.
I know a lot of guys that have gone out on their first time and shot a bigger deer than I'll probably ever kill in my life. And you're right, being at the right place at the right time. But, that day has come and gone for me. I've been hunting for a long time. It's not like I'm going to have beginner's luck. Jay, you and Dusty aren't going to have beginner's luck. You've been doing it for a long time. So all we can do is learn as much as we can. Sometimes, too much knowledge can get you because then you're second guessing everything. But, just stick to the basics. What deer are they're a product of their environment, their habit. As long as you don't get in and spook them or blow them out, they're going to pretty much do what they do. Just get in there, find you a good pinch point, find you a good funnel, a good trail. Try to stay on the downwind side of it. Be still and put your time on stand, because you can't kill a deer if you're not in the wood. I've got a good buddy in Iowa that's a very, very successful trophy hunter. I mean, this guy has killed more Boone and Crockett class deer with his bow than anybody I know. And I'm speaking of all the greats that are out there, but Mitch is a phenomenal hunter. And he says the key to killing a big buck is TOS, time on stand, and passing the 140s and 150s. If you've got big mature bucks in your area, don't shoot the first 140 or 150 that walks out, because if you do, you'll never kill a 170 or 180.
That's very true.
I agree to that. You got to pass a good buck to shoot a great buck. I agree to that.
Yep, I completely.
It's hard to do sometimes, guys. Y'all know just like I do, and and don't get me wrong. There's a lot of guys out there that are happy to shoot a mature deer regardless of the score. So if you can shoot a mature deer, especially with a bow, it doesn't matter if that deer scores 115 and that's the tops in your area, or if he scores 140 or if he scores 190. Right. Not everybody has the good fortune to live in an area that produces 180, 190 class deer. So your goal in your area, if you're a trophy hunter, should be to harvest the best that your area can produce.
Right.
Mature deer.
Yeah.
If you can shoot a mature deer with a bow and arrow, like I said, it doesn't matter if that deer scores 110 or if it scores 190. Now, I'd rather have the 190, and so would everybody else. But if you can shoot a mature deer, then you have really accomplished something with a bow and arrow.
Yeah, absolutely. What kind of bow are you shooting?
Well, again, that's one of those things where everybody's got their opinion. Matthews, bow tag, this or that. I actually, right now, I'm still shooting my Hoyt. I've had this Hoyt for about 6 years, and I've killed most of my big deer with it. I've shot Elite. I've shot Matthews. I've got 2 Strother bows that I absolutely love. But it just seems like if something kind of gets out of tune on my Strother, I'll just go and pick up that Hoyt, and even though it's not as fast and it's not as fancy looking as that Strother bow, it's still accurate and I can kill a deer with it. And I think I've killed most of my Pope and Young deer I've killed with that Hoyt.
Nice.
And it's a 6-year-old bow now. So you don't have to have the latest and greatest. Now, again, there's people out there that would throw rocks at me, for saying that, but there's a lot of great bows. Matthews, of course, makes a great bow. Bowtech makes a great bow. Bear, there's lots of great bows out there. These days, the technology has come such a long way. Get a bow that you're comfortable with, that's in the price range that you can afford. Don't do like I did and not pay your car notes so you could buy a new bow. There's a lot of us that'll do that, man. Oh, honey, I got this bow on sale. It was only $200. Like
right.
$200 for how many months in a row?
Right on.
Because I've noticed $200 missing out of the checking account for 7 months now. So that's $1,400.
Yeah, right on. What is there a particular broadhead you like to put on?
That's another one of those things. Everybody's got their preference. I prefer a cut on contact broadhead. That's just my preference. I have never shot a mechanical. I've filmed with guys that shot mechanicals, and I've watched them fail to deploy. And I'm sorry, if I've got an opportunity at 150 or 160 plus inch mature buck and my broadhead doesn't open up, even if there's a slim to none chance that it could, if there's a possibility that it could fail to open up, I can't risk it. That's just me. I've seen some of those mechanicals do devastating jobs, but a few years ago, I got online and I saw a broadhead that Ted Nugent was shooting. I figured if it was good enough for Ted, it's good enough for me. And I actually shot it for 3 years and I had tremendous results with it. It was a Magnus. This year I'm actually going to shoot grave diggers. It is a semi-mechanical. It's got a cut on contact, 2-blade razor tip. And then it also has the 2 blades that open up, but it's not spring loaded. I mean, it has to open up. There's no way it can fail to open up because of the way it's designed. When it hits the skin, it forces it open. So I met the owner of Gravedigger at the ATA show this year. I was looking at Grim Reapers and I was looking at Gravediggers, and I liked what the owner of Gravedigger said. Whether it was true or not, I believe the guy, and so I'm gonna shoot Gravediggers this year.
Very cool, excellent,
awesome.
You guys want to talk some music and some comedy?
Man, I'm all about it.
All right. So, Kevin, tell us. I mean, you're a great deer hunter, and thank you so much for sharing some of those stories and tips. That's so important to us to hear that kind of stuff. Do you think you're a funny guy in general?
I don't think so much that I'm like a funny guy. I mean, I'm definitely not like Dusty. I'm not the stand-up guy that can get up and now I've come up with some pretty outrageous Saturday Night Live-esque skits, that I think would go over great. And I've come up with some really cool commercial ideas, but I'm not really the class clown. I mean, I cut up a little bit, but I'm not that guy,
Okay.
But when it comes to deer hunting and it comes to singing, I'm very passionate about it. I'm very knowledgeable about it. And when I hear a song on the radio, my brain just thinks in a different way. I hear, I got friends in low places, and my brain hears I hunt deer in posted places.
Right.
I hear the thunder rolls on the radio, and all of a sudden my brain says, no, I hear the spotlight glows.
Right.
So, when these songs come out on the radio, it's weird how, I just automatically start thinking, how can I change that up to make it into a funny hunting song? And it's been pretty awesome. And I've had a lot of fun. I've made a lot of people laugh over the last 10 years.
So you'll start listening to a song on the radio. Do you have kids?
I do.
So
I have 2 daughters, Sarah and Ashley.
That's right. You said they're in
I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, and they're out now and going to school in their GI Bill.
So as your kids were growing up, they must have been listening to different music that you had to listen to because you're the dad. And
right.
So, and I'm experiencing that now. I'm dropping my kids off at school, and I'm getting a full dose of what's popular today, which is not necessarily what I would listen to, but
right.
So you must be listening to stuff like that or other songs, and then automatically, boom, you're putting new lyrics into that song itself.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy. Like I said, how my brain works. Sometimes I wonder, if I've got, I don't know if I got a screw loose or something, but, because some of the stuff I come up with is pretty outrageous, but, I love life, and I love having a good time, and I like for people to enjoy, being around me and I like entertaining people, and it's not an ego thing. It's just who I am, and I enjoy it very much. And when I see people laughing at what I do, there's you can't put a price on that. There's no there's no measure for it. The way it makes me feel. I mean, I've sung for people like Brett Favre and had Brett Favre with tears rolling down his face, laughing at my songs, and Chipper Jones and Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s got one of my 3 CD sets, and some of these people that and game wardens. I mean, I've got game wardens that just laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh, and they understand that it's just comedy. I'm not trying to promote illegal activities or anything like that. This is just fun. It's something to laugh.
Yeah, it's the parody, and it just so happens that the people that are committing these crimes are the easiest to pick on, I think.
Right. Exactly. Right? Yeah.
I have to say that I started listening to your CDs when you sent them to me, and I don't really end up cracking up, laughing, fall on the floor most of the time. I'm usually kind of contained, but I have to say I actually started like belly laughing at some of your stuff. So if that means anything, because I'm a hard person, I don't laugh hard at a lot of stuff, but I was belly laughing.
You're doing something if you got Jay belly laughing.
Yeah, you're doing it right.
Well, the thing is, Jay and Dusty, you guys know it's something that you can relate to. Deer hunting,
right.
And so when you hear, some of this crazy stuff. I mean, it's something that you're passionate about. So of course it's going to strike you differently than it would somebody that doesn't hunt.
Right.
If you hunt and you deer hunt and you listen to these songs and you don't laugh, I'm going to question if there's something wrong with you.
Right. Good point.
And I'm not bragging on my music, guys, because I don't even know where some of this stuff comes from.
I felt as if you was talking about me in a couple songs.
Oh my gosh,
Right.
dude!
I know people that you are talking about. I know that for sure.
I've had the real unbelievable honor to entertain at some really cool functions over the last few years. And one of the things that I get to do every year is I sing for the Legends of the Outdoors National Hall of Fame induction ceremony every year.
Nice.
I wrote the theme song for them about 6 years ago, and I'm the entertainer for the Legends of the Outdoors. And I get to meet all the new legends that come in, and to be able to stand up on the stage and to sing some of these songs and plug guys' names like Dick Idle and Dan Moultrie and some of these guys in Toxie into my songs while I'm singing and see the room just erupt. There's no greater feeling. Even though I do it for I do that event for free. It's amazing at how these people respond to what I'm doing. And there's, like I said, when you can get in a room of your peers, or get in a room of legends in the industry, like Nightingale and Jerry Martin from Bass Pro Shops, and all these guys that have been inducted every year, Ray Scott and Jimmy Houston and some of these guys, it's unbelievable how they have received this and embraced it, and some of the opportunities that I've had to hunt with some of these guys is just, it's awesome. It really is awesome. I'm so blessed, and I'm so grateful that I get to do some of the things I get to do.
Do you have any inspirations from some of the current comedians that are in the outdoor comedian industry, like maybe Jeff Foxworthy or Get Her Done, or any of those guys?
I would like to say yes, but I really can't as far as what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that my biggest influence as far as this would have to be Weird Al Yankovic. I grew up in the 80s.
Yep.
When Weird Al Yankovic came out, that was my first real exposure to parodies. And, when he came out with, Like a Surgeon and I Lost on Jeopardy and I'm Fat, or Eat It, dude.
Right.
I mean, I just thought that was awesome. And then whenever we got our record deal, one of the first tours that we were on the Walmart tour with Cletus T. Judd, so I got to hear Indian In-Laws and some of these other outrageous songs that he did. And when I started doing this, it's not like I was trying to imitate those guys. When you have when you have influences, you get a little piece of here and a little piece of there and a little piece of there and a little piece of there. But one of the things that I've always done that's always kind of set me apart when I'd go out and do my shows is I would always sing and put the place that I was at, or the company that I was with, or the some of the people that were there. I plugged their names into the song, so I was already kind of changing stuff up anyway off the cuff, just to make people feel included. So when I wrote that first song at that deer camp, I wasn't necessarily thinking I'm going to be Cletus T. Judd or I'm going to be Weird Al Yankovic. I just started changing the words to a Tim McGraw song, and everybody started laughing. And then I'm thinking, hey, I might be onto something here. And then I started listening to, when a song would come on the radio, my brain just automatically started thinking in that line. And instead of writing regular songs, I was thinking, well, how could I change that into a parody?
Right.
For example, George Strait, The Chair, well, excuse me, but I think you got my chair. I was sitting there, I go, well, excuse me, but I think you shot my deer.
Right.
I shot him back yonder, and the blood trail stops right here. I mean, it just comes out. I'm like, where does this come from, dude? I mean, it's crazy, but it makes people laugh. And every once in a while, I'll get an idea for one, and it just works. I mean, Redneck Woman by Gretchen Wilson. I was on a radio show in Mississippi, and that song, they had just played that song. I said, man, that'd be I could parody that one. And I say, I'm a redneck hunter. I ain't no tree hugging girl. And dude, I wrote the first verse just off the cuff, sitting there in the studio at the radio station.
Right.
So then I go home, and 30 minutes later, I got the song finished, and it's one of my favorites. It's actually the title cut for Volume 2, and it's just, I mean, some of the ones I'm working on now for Volume 4. I Drive Your Truck. Have you heard that song? I drive your truck. It's
right.
I can't remember the guy that does it, but I mean, as soon as I heard it, I mean, what pops into my head? But She shot my buck. She just rolled the window down and lit him up in a field outside of town, squeezed off a round. He hit the ground. Bloody drag marks is all I found. He's not around 'cause she shot my buck. I mean, it's like,
that's awesome.
Look, it just comes out, dude. I'm like,
That's
what
perfect.
in the world, man? It's crazy.
It's crazy how different minds work, and you've definitely got a mind for this. But I was thinking about this earlier, and I didn't want to insult you because I wasn't sure if it would insult you or not. But I was
Nothing's gonna insult me, Jay, I promise.
very cool. I was thinking that as I'm listening to your songs, like this is the Weird Al Yankovic of the hunting industry, and that's what I was thinking. Exactly what you just said. So I think
no, that's definitely not an insult, Jay. I take that as a compliment. I actually wrote a speech in my college speech class about Weird Al Yankovic, and
nice.
it's like I said, I love to laugh, and when you can write these comedy parody songs about a subject that you know a lot about and that you're very passionate about, it's really not work at all. It's actually fun. I love to do it, man. I love to do it.
That's awesome. How did you come up with Bad Bob and Jimmy? Where does that come from? Where's the inspiration for that?
Well, when I first started writing these songs, I wasn't ready to give up on my serious career yet. And so I figured, well, if I do this as Kevin Blake Weldon, then I'm going to be labeled as a Cletus T. Judd, as a comedy artist, and people may not take me seriously. So I said, well, I want to do it under an assumed name. Well, a couple of years earlier, I was making up these goofy stories about Bad Bob Underbrush, and my older brother and I were fishing in a bass club back home in Lufkin, and when I'd come into town, I'd purposely come home on the weekends that we'd have the tournaments, and I used to make these goofy stories up to entertain my brother and a couple of my fishing buddies, and it started out as Bad Bob's Big Bass Bulletin Board, and I'd have these crazy stories about this character Bad Bob that was always catching the most fish and always winning the tournaments and always catching them with the most outrageous techniques, and so I was writing or making up these funny stories. Well, then I decided that I was going to record this, with an assumed name. And I had a really good buddy of mine named Robert Newland that was a baseball player that was my bow hunt. He was like my bow hunting right hand man. We hunted together all the time. And so I was going to include Robert in on this. And I said, I'll tell you what, why don't we do this kind of like as a joke, as a duo type thing, and you can be Jimmy, because I always call him Jimmy. Well, I loved Tombstone and Val Kilmer, when he says, I'm your Huckleberry, that line always stuck with me. So Jimmy got the last name Huckleberry. And, Of course, Bad Bob Underbrush, already had his name. And so then when I got into the deer hunting, I had to change Bad Bob's bulletin board to Bad Bob's Big Bass and Bruising Bucks bulletin board. Well, over the years, I've got into turkey hunting, and I wrote some turkey hunting songs, so now it's Bad Bob's Big Bass, Bruising Bucks, and Boss Bird's bulletin board. So
wow, that's a mouthful.
I started recording under the name Bad Bob and Jimmy, right off the bat, and in a way, it's kind of hurt me, because I've branded Bad Bob and Jimmy for so many years that just in the last 3 years, I've started to put Kevin Blake Weldon as Bad Bob and Jimmy. Because I would do all the voices, I'd do all the different characters and telephone calls. I mean, all that's my voice, So people didn't realize that it was actually just one person, doing both parts. But that's just something else that I really like to do, and I'm kind of creative that way. So that's why I did that.
Me and you can get along great.
Awesome, dude. Dusty
is just itching to do a prank call show. I mean, that's his thing.
I love it.
This could get epic, really.
All right, so
Dusty, make sure you listen to let's see, it's going to be I think it's on bonus stuff, and I can't remember if it's volume 1 or volume 2, but I actually have a couple of those phone calls. There's one guy that calls in, and his name is Buck, and he's 76, and he's calling about an ad in the paper about getting on a deer lease, and it is absolutely hilarious. You gotta.
This is crazy.
Go for that.
Have you ever heard of Officer Fredman Buck?
I have not.
He's a character.
Officer Fredman Buck is a character that Dusty and I created while we're sitting in the media room at the Great American Outdoor Show, just on a whim, just goofing off, setting up mics, and Dusty just starts doing this funny voice about this old timer, and we literally went from nothing to a full-time retired fish and game officer who uses a CB radio and drives a 1976 Scout still around, and had this whole thing played out and actually recorded. And I was just recently, I was able to take a picture of who I thought he looked like, and with an app, I'm able to create a voice and make his mouth move. We've actually got a cartoon of Officer Fredman Buck now.
Oh, dude, that's great, guys. That's great. That leads me into another thing. I don't want to get into real in-depth about this, but about 5 years ago, when I was really developing a lot of the stuff, I decided to write an animated television series around the Bad Bob and Jimmy project, and I developed 8 characters. They all take place in the town of Buckville. Bad Bob is the local radio show guy that is on WBUX with Bad Bob's Big Bass, Bruising Bucks, Ball Spurs, Bulletin Board. There's the Drop Time Cafe where everybody, the kind of the local hangout. There's of course Jimmy Huckleberry. There's Bad Bob. There's Warden Woodrow. There's the owner of the Drop Time Cafe. There's Savannah, the waitress. There's Grandma, Jimmy Huckleberry's grandma that won the Powerball for $186 million. Then there's Leroy, the local mail carrier, and there's Farmer Johnson. And dude, I wrote 4 episodes. I got the scripts already done, developed. I got the characters drawn, and we went so far as to meet with an animation studio in Austin, Texas, that was ready to take on the project. And I just never got my business plan together to go get the funding to do it. I don't know if we'll ever try to do it or not, but oh my gosh, guys, you will absolutely not believe some of the episodes that I wrote. It makes me laugh till I can't.
That's excellent. You may need to, if you ever get it off the ground, you may have to incorporate a guest appearance from Officer Fredman Buck.
Absolutely. He could be the new director for the APTF.
Perfect.
Which is the Anti-Poaching Task Force.
Yes.
Perfect.
See, they were, the whole Series 1 episode revolved around them trying to bust the Isle Hideout Network, the poaching operation, headed up by someone's been poaching.
I've listened to that one now.
Oh my gosh, dude.
All right, so as I'm listening to this, one of my favorite songs of all time is Johnny Cash's Psychobilly Cadillac, which you did a parody on.
Right.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
You talking about Big Buck?
Yeah.
I've got a new one that's coming out that's right along the lines of David Allan Coe. If that ain't country, I'll kiss your blank. You know that song?
Yep.
Mine goes, the old buck was covered with scratches and scars from broadheads and bullets and bumpers on cars, most from guys who are now behind bars for poaching. You could tell he was old by the sway in his back. His neck was thick and his hawks were black, and just seeing him to give you a heart attack from your tree stand. He chased 16 does and a little buck fawn from late in the evening till the early dawn. 15 points, 80 inches of mass. If you ain't a state record, I'll buy your gas.
Nice.
It's
just crazy. Crazy.
This stuff just rolls off your brain, huh? It just booms there.
Do you got your guitar in front of you?
I do, brother. I sure do.
Let's get this thing a pick and let's hear a couple songs.
Yeah, will you play us a couple songs?
Absolutely, I'd love to, guys. It's hard, when I sit down. I've got so many good parodies that I like, but I'd have to say this one here is one of the most popular. It's a parody of George Strait, big single he had out a few years ago called "Write This Down." I don't know if y'all heard it or not. Write this down, take a little note to remind you in case you didn't know. Tell yourself I love you and I don't want you to go. Write this down. Well, I changed it up to if it's brown, it's down. And it goes out to all my buddies who go out and shoot the first deer on opening morning. I didn't see no horns in sight. He ran through my blind. But I got my gun up. I pulled the trigger just in time. I barely had my foot out the door when my buddy called my cell phone. Started screaming about the management plan, but I've got a plan of my own. If it's brown, it's down. Shoot that little doe. If it's got spots, nobody's gonna know. Even that button buck, he's gonna go. If it's brown, he's down. 'Cause you can't eat horns, I'm hunting just for meat. A tender little doe just can't be beat. Lord knows I'm a hungry man and I'm gonna eat. If it's brown, he's down.
That was excellent.
Perfect.
Oh, God, I love this stuff.
Man, and see, Dusty, you live in Ohio where you guys can shoot crossbows, so the second verse is about bringing a crossbow. So
Right
you
on.
get a kick out of that. But yeah, it's if it's brown, it's down. That's the title cut for Volume 3. And of course I've got my music video. We did a full-blown music video for I'm Pretty Bad at Hunting Deer. And that was going to be the title cut to Volume 4 that I'm working on right now. And it's a parody of Billy Currington, I'm Pretty Good at Drinking Beer.
Yep.
And I'm pretty excited to say that our YouTube hits on that video have just eclipsed 800,000
Nice.
views on the video. So we're real excited about that. And I can't wait to get the new CD out. I think we're going to sell more of Volume 4 than we've done on 1, 2, and 3 combined.
That's fantastic.
Can you play a little bit of that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get this guitar fixed just right here, guys.
Sure.
All right. I ain't never shot no big rag buck. No one ever stops to peek in the bed of my truck. I come home empty-handed 'cause I got no luck. Yeah, I'm pretty bad at hunting deer. I watch their show on my TV. Spook's my hero and I got a crush on Tiffany. The bone collector Michael Waddell makes it look easy, but I'm pretty bad at hunting deer. I wear my rubber boots, got a scent-lock suit, rattle bag and grunt call. Pour out my tank 69, I use it all the time, but I still got no buck on my wall. I got kicked off my own grandpa's farm. He said I couldn't hit the broadside of his barn. To tell you all the truth, I just don't give a darn, 'cause I'm pretty bad at hunting deer. I'm pretty bad at hunting deer.
that's awesome. That's a huge viral hit of yours.
Oh
That
my
is
gosh.
fantastic.
I've seen that music video in a lot of places.
Oh man, I tell you, that's just been that has been a huge blessing, guys. I mean, you know, when we put that video out, you know, and we saw 2,000 views in the first 5 or 6 hours, and it goes to 10,000 to 20 to 80 to 200,000 to 500,000 now to 800,000. It's like, oh my gosh, man! And people that's never heard my music before just now seeing this for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my likes at my Facebook page have gone up, a lot. My orders, I'm selling orders right now every day. And before I wouldn't sell them until, my commercials aired on TV or whatever, but I'm getting orders every day for the music. And it's just, it's all a result of this social media, man. It's crazy.
It is crazy. The whole world of social media is just, it's there at your fingertips. You can get it anytime you want. It's absolutely amazing. I love what you're doing, Kevin. I love that you're making parodies and that, because I guess at the end of the day, we always sometimes take ourselves too seriously. You got to hold that mirror up and just look at yourself in the mirror and say, all right, man, I'm just a little too full of myself. And I love what you're doing, just kind of pointing it back and making it fun. And that just is
we've
awesome.
got to, guys. Life is too short. My older brother. I was telling you that I was doing those funny stories. Kendall was 46 years old. He died of a heart attack in his sleep, and I was hunting in Kansas when I got the phone call from my sister, and I absolutely couldn't believe what I was hearing on the other end of the line, that my 46-year-old brother that was 11 months older than me died of a heart attack.
Yep.
And I couldn't believe it. And I'm a strong believer, and I don't go around beating people over the head with a Bible. I certainly don't judge people, but life is very short, and there's no guarantee that we're going to have another day. And I try so hard to be the man that people would be proud to know. I've made my mistakes, guys. I've been humbled in my life. I've made my mistakes, but where I'm at now is I just want to enjoy my life for as long as it is, whether it's one more day or whether it's 5 years or 50 more years. I don't know. But I love to have fun, and I don't like to see people hurting. I don't like to see people, jealous or in a bad mood. And it's amazing at what my deer hunting songs have been able to do, in a lot of places. Now, there's still guys out there that every once in a while I'll catch some flack from somebody that thinks that I'm promoting illegal activities. I said, guys, have you listened to it? Jimmy Huckleberry gets arrested by the game warden. He loses his spotlight, loses his truck, loses his hunting rights, has to go to jail. This is just fun. My sister works for Parks and Wildlife in Texas, and I know a lot of the game wardens there. And those guys, they absolutely love what I'm doing. I've done several game warden events. The director of the Alabama Fish and Game has asked me to come down and do the governor's hunt for them this year, or actually in the spring for turkeys. I sold some CDs to some game wardens in Illinois, and they play my song Bucky the Bionic Buck every time they arrest somebody for shooting their mechanical deer. They play that song while they're writing their tickets. So,
that's fantastic.
My sister came in last year, and the game wardens were in the chief's office, and they were in there laughing, and they said, "Hey, but you got to come in here and hear this." And she went in there, and they were playing my song, "The Spotlight Glows," which is a parody of "The Thunder Rolls." And they're just rolling laughing. And she said, "You know who that is, don't you?" And they're like, some duo called Bad Bob and Jimmy. And Ava said, "No, that's my brother." And they're like, no, this ain't your brother. This is this Bad Bob and Jimmy. It's going all over. Every game warden in the state of Texas has this, and it's huge. I mean, she goes, "That's my brother." She went out and got the CD and brought it in and showed them. And they're like, "You have got to be kidding me. This is like huge, So, I got to play that song from Brett Favre in Mississippi a few years ago. I was entertaining at a big deer lodge, and Brett knew one of the executives there, and he hunts there every year. And so after dinner every night, I'd play, for about an hour. Well, I played the song, "The Spotlight Glows," and Brett's back in the back of the room. He's laughing so hard he's got tears on his face. He said, "Hey, Kevin," he says, "you must be following me around, dude." And he commences to telling me the story outside, and I'm not allowed to repeat it, but
right.
He told me the story of something that happened to him that it kind of fell in line with one of the lines in the song, and he just absolutely and he let me I've got home video footage of Brett Favre saying, "Hey, y'all stay tuned for some more Bad Bob and Jimmy. Spotlight Glows, that's one of my favorites." I've got Brett Favre on video, giving me plugs for my music. So that was awesome, dude. That was like one of the highlights of my career so far. That's
going to be a pinnacle. Would you leave us with a little bit of that?
Sure. I'll give you guys a little bit of it.
Awesome.
Everybody's heard "The Thunder Rolls," right, by Garth Brooks?
Yes.
3:30 in the morning, not a soul in sight. Steering wheel in my left hand and a spotlight in my right. Out looking for a big buck, 'cause there's a contest to win. I can't let old Dusty Phillips beat me out again. So the spotlight glows. Yeah, the spotlight glows. Game warden sleeping in his house across town. It's a good thing I mailed his wife that Victoria's Secret's gown. Asking for a miracle as my buck walks into sight. Warden ain't the only one who's getting lucky tonight. Spotlight glows. The spotlight glows. The spotlight glows and the bullet strikes. Another buck goes down on an Ohio night. Poaching goes on out of control. Deep in the dark, the spotlight glows. So warden's hiding in the bushes as I pulled into my drive. Something's kicking in the bed of my truck. I think that buck is still alive. I jump out to finish him off, and out the back he goes. The warden's light shines in my eyes. I think now he knows that the spotlight glows. Yeah, the spotlight glows. The spotlight glows and the bullet strikes. Another buck goes down on a moonless night. Poaching goes on out of control. Deep in the dark, the spotlight glows. Warden rushes over to me. He throws my gun to the ground. About the only break I caught was my buck was never found. Warden said, son, you can't fool me, 'cause I know where you've been. And this'll be the last time you spotlight deer again. Spotlight don't glow. Spotlight don't glow.
Very nice. Very nice, Kevin. That was awesome.
Anyway, just a quick disclaimer here, guys. This is just comedy. You know, when I talk about hunting in posted places or shooting them with a spotlight or not getting permission on Farmer Johnson's land, doesn't mean you need to go out and do it. I'm just making light. We've got to abide by the game laws, guys. Y'all know that, or we're not going to have, the privilege, of hunting and fishing, because, there's a lot of people out there that want to take it away from us. And, if you guys are serious and you love it and you want to pass it down to your kids and your grandkids, we've got to be a part of conservation, and we've got to abide by the game laws. And even when the game wardens out there are horses' rears, sometimes they can be, as long as we're doing things right, we're not going to get in trouble.
Right.
And we definitely want to conserve, the resources that we have, and to be able to, have deer for our kids and our grandkids to be able to hunt, down the road like we get to do. So keep it legal, guys, and just enjoy yourself. And if you enjoyed the podcast, let Dusty and Jay know. And if you want to friend me on Facebook, I'm under Kevin Blake Weldon. My page is Funny Hunting Songs. My Twitter is at Hunting Songs. And I've got my 3 CD sets for sale at my website, and it's real easy to remember, guys. It's just www.funnyhuntingsongs.com. It's real easy to find.
Awesome. I was going to ask you all that. You beat me to it, so that's awesome. And it is kind of funny how people are uptight, and too uptight, I think, just to even maybe hear these songs. And you got to think it's a parody if you're just a normal person. But man, I've gotten beat up a few times for some of the things we've done on the show or posted on Facebook, and I'm like, you know what? Life's too short. So
it is, guys, and y'all know, just like I know, you're never going to be able to please everybody. And if people just understand, just take a little bit of time to get to know somebody before you attack them. Because I know if they get to know you, Jay and Dusty, they're going to know you guys, your hearts are in the right place. You're trying to provide for your families. You guys are doing something. It's a service. It's something that people are interested in. And, we're not trying to force anybody to listen. I'm not trying to force anybody to like what I do. My heart's in the right place. I just want to have a good time, and I want people to enjoy it. And if you don't, then just go tune into something else.
Absolutely.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Couldn't have said it better.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better. Well, Kevin, this has been fantastic, and I'd love to have you join us again on the show. The songs and the lyrics are phenomenal, and to have you back on the show down the road when you got a new album coming out, you're more than welcome anytime on the Big Buck Podcast.
Man, that's awesome, guys. I really appreciate it. I love what you're doing, and thank you so much for giving me another opportunity to reach some viewers or some listeners that may not have, been able to hear my stuff. And I hope that everybody out there enjoyed it tonight. And I hope to maybe get to meet you guys, someday real soon.
Definitely, we are.
Absolutely,
we'll be on tour when the season falls and it's time to get on the road and go join some of these outdoor shows and meet up with all of our family and friends that are out there. So I'm sure we'll catch up with you at someplace down the road.
That would be great, guys.
Thanks again for joining us.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure and an honor, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't think I've laughed that hard in a long, long time.
Yeah, it's awesome to throw in a change up here and there. And it was definitely a curveball, but I really, really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed Kevin. I enjoy his work and his music. And, he did have a full-blown Nashville country music career there, as he talked about. But now he's turned his talents on to making funny deer songs. And so between making funny hunting songs about deer hunting and all those bad eggs out there that make it bad for all of us, he's turned it into a parody and just makes you laugh. And as I described, this is one of the first times I've ever belly laughed hard. I mean, to the point where I was crying and tears were rolling down my eyes as I was listening to the CDs that Kevin had sent to us.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's one of them things where there's so many things that you can relate to or your buddies have done. And man, it really does make you laugh.
It really does. And you can relate because you know people like this.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
have done this stuff. And it's just, oh, man.
That's the greatest part about it is like you can play this anywhere and it's going to fit right in and people's going to laugh.
Yep, exactly. So darn funny. So just thanks again to Kevin for joining us on the Big Buck podcast and playing a few tunes and just making us laugh tonight. That's the best part.
Absolutely, you know, and not too many times that you're going to hear Kevin play that live on your podcast.
No, you'll never. Very few podcasts will you ever hear that on. I don't even know if he's been on another podcast, but we got it done right here on the Big Buck podcast today. So awesome show.
Absolutely, Jay. How can the people get in touch with you at the Big Buck Registry?
Whoa! Settle down. We haven't done the Chubby Tines tip of the week yet.
You're right. We have not.
That's right. We got to do that.
Awesome.
Don't leave me hanging, brother. What do you got?
Rubber boots.
Rubber boots. All right. Rubber baby buggy bumper.
Yeah, you got a rubber baby buggy bumper. You know, you got to talk fast.
All right.
Rubber boots. You know, if you can find a pair that fits you, and you know, once it gets cold, rubber boots are tough. But you know, rubber don't hold the scent, so it makes for a great walk in and out, and you leave it scent free on your travels.
I love my rubber boots. I don't leave home without them. It's like American Express. Good tip. Excellent. Chubby Tines tip of the week. So, all right, now we can wrap up the show. How about you tell me where we can find you, Dusty?
Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. Submit your photos. Send in a message. You want to talk about deer hunting, we'll post it up, answer your questions. Dusty Huntneck right here on Facebook. That wraps me up. And are you ready? Are you ready to rumble for the Big Buck Registry? Where can we find you at, Jay, at the Big Buck Registry?
Well, first, what I'd like to do is invite you to join us over at iTunes, which is bigbukregistry.com/iTunes. I'd love you to go over there, give us a 5-star review, check out our shows. All of them are listed there for free to listen to, all kinds of great content, and subscribe to the show there as well. That's the first thing I'd like you to do. You can always go to our blog at www.bigbukregistry.com. We're on Facebook, which is facebook.com/bigbukregistry. We're also on Twitter, which is twitter.com/bigbukregistry. And please call the show and leave us some feedback. If you like the show, don't like the show, love us, hate us, whatever, I'd love to hear from you. And that's 724-613-2825. If you'd like to submit a buck to the Big Buck Registry Wall of Fame, which is our Facebook page, we post $5 a day. And if you'd like to have yours featured on our Facebook page, just send a picture or visit www.bigbukregistry.com/mybuck and follow the instructions there. There are many options on which you can get that photo to us. All we ask is that you include a picture of you and the buck. You can send other pictures so long as you send that one, plus the state and the name of the hunter. And if you'd like to do a share with us on Facebook, do a share for share. It's bigbukregistry.com/S4S. There, I'm done.
Wow. Big Buck.
Everywhere a Big Buck. Nice.
Yeah.
It's our new.
Love it, man. You know, thanks to everybody for tuning in with us for another great episode of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast. I'm Dusty Phillips.
And I'm Jay Scott. And this is the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast. See you next week.
Can't wait.